There's an invisible divide that separates those who shape outcomes from those who simply experience them. You've sensed this distinction throughout your entire professional life. You enter spaces where certain individuals naturally draw attention without uttering a word. These people receive the opportunities, command the respect, and wield the influence that seems perpetually out of your reach. Meanwhile, you increase your work output, you enhance your skill set, you attempt to be more agreeable and demonstrate greater competence. Yet, somehow you remain overlooked, left questioning why your abilities don't translate into recognition. Why does your dedication fail to generate the rewards you've earned? The answer lies in a fundamental misunderstanding about how influence actually operates. Here's the uncomfortable reality that professional development courses rarely address directly. Influence doesn't operate on merit or good intentions alone. It functions on leverage, strategic positioning, and understanding what drives human behavior at its core. You've been attempting to build relationships with influential people by offering friendship and goodwill. But individuals who already possess significant influence don't need additional friends or admirers. They need strategic assets, they need people who understand their challenges, and they need protection from threats to their position. If you want genuine access to the environments where consequential decisions are made, you must fundamentally transform your approach. You need to eliminate the part of your psychology that constantly seeks external validation. You must stop unconsciously asking permission to occupy space in rooms where you absolutely belong based on your capabilities. Strategic thinkers throughout history have understood something essential about human nature and organizational dynamics. People are fundamentally driven by self-interest, concern about threats to their position, and the need for their self-image to be validated. If you ignore these psychological drivers, you'll perpetually remain a piece being moved rather than the strategist moving pieces. If you master understanding these dynamics, you position yourself as someone who shapes outcomes rather than merely responds to them. In the following comprehensive guide, we're going to systematically dismantle the ineffective beliefs you've absorbed about professional networking. We'll explore 13 strategic principles for building connections with influential people. These aren't superficial networking tips about handshakes and business cards. These are psychological frameworks for understanding what drives decision makers and how to position yourself as indispensable to their objectives. By the end of this guide, you'll no longer look at someone with significant influence and see them as inherently superior or intimidating. Instead, you'll recognize them as individuals with specific psychological needs and professional challenges, and you'll understand exactly how to position yourself as the solution to those challenges. However, be aware that once you understand these dynamics clearly, you cannot return to naive approaches to professional relationships. You'll see the strategic elements in every interaction, which fundamentally change how you operate. Most professionals fail at building influential connections because they approach power with obvious need, essentially begging for favors or opportunities. They believe authentic networking means being yourself and hoping people appreciate your genuine personality. This is a comfortable myth that keeps you trapped in ineffective patterns. Being completely yourself without strategic adaptation is a luxury reserved for those who've already achieved significant influence and no longer need to build their network. For those still climbing toward greater impact, strategic networking requires intelligent adaptation. It demands becoming precisely what the other person needs to see and experience, until you've embedded yourself so thoroughly in their professional ecosystem that they cannot function optimally without your contribution. But how do you execute this strategic positioning without compromising your integrity or becoming manipulative? How do you influence the perception of elite professionals without becoming a sycophant who abandons their values? The answer lies in understanding what psychologists call strategic empathy and value positioning. Before we explore that framework, you need to understand the 13 fundamental principles that govern how influence truly operates. The first critical error most ambitious professionals make is attempting to impress influential people by showcasing their intelligence, capabilities, and knowledge too aggressively. Your ego takes control when you meet someone with significant influence. You want to demonstrate how much you know, how capable you are, and how impressive your achievements have been. You believe this aggressive demonstration will earn respect and recognition. It typically achieves the opposite effect. Excessive displays of capability actually breed insecurity in many influential people. Despite their external confidence, individuals with significant power are often psychologically fragile in specific ways. Their identity and self-concept are frequently built on being recognized as the most strategic, capable, or visionary person in their environment. When you enter their space, shining too brightly with your capabilities, you don't register as an asset. No, you register as a potential threat to their position and self-image. Historical strategic advisors understood this dynamic deeply. Appearing more capable than your superiors is always psychologically dangerous. When you make someone with authority over you look less impressive by comparison, you trigger their survival instinct. They will work to marginalize you, not because you're incompetent, but precisely because you're capable enough to threaten their position or ego. So what's the strategic approach? Deliberately moderate your shine. Make them appear brilliant in interactions. When you contribute an idea, frame it in a way that makes it seem like their concept or a natural extension of their thinking. Ask questions that allow them to provide the answer and feel wise. Feed their need for recognition strategically. This isn't weakness or compromising yourself. This is strategic camouflage. By allowing them to feel intellectually superior and secure, you lower their psychological defenses against you. You become categorized as safe rather than threatening, and once you're perceived as safe, you gain access to their inner circle. While they're occupied, admiring their own reflection and feeling validated, you're quietly observing their operational patterns, understanding their weaknesses, and securing your indispensable position. Let them claim the visible glory. You accumulate the actual influence. A predictable person is a controllable person. If someone understands precisely what you want, they know exactly how to manipulate or control you. If they know you desperately want financial advancement, they can control you with monetary incentives. If they recognize you crave recognition and praise, they can manipulate you with flattery and status symbols. Most professionals wear their desires transparently. They approach influential people, and their body language, tone, and conversation all broadcast, "I need something from you." This desperation is the ultimate repellent to people with options. Desperation signals low value and neediness, which influential people instinctively avoid. To build genuine connections with influential individuals, you must become somewhat enigmatic. When you enter professional spaces, don't immediately reveal your ultimate objectives. Discuss topics beyond your immediate business interests. Talk about art, philosophy, their personal interests, current events, anything that humanizes the interaction and creates a connection without an obvious agenda. Make them curious about your presence and motivations. Strategic mystery creates attraction and engagement. When they cannot immediately decode what you want from them, they become intrigued. They begin projecting their own frameworks onto you. Paradoxically, they may start pursuing a connection with you to solve the puzzle of your motivations and objectives. Never reveal your complete strategic hand until you've already secured the position you want. Be professionally friendly, open in appropriate ways, and genuinely charming. But keep your core ambitions and ultimate objectives protected in a psychological vault where others cannot access them. The less they understand about your true motivations initially, the more power you maintain in the developing relationship. Information asymmetry is leverage. This principle explains why conventionally nice professionals often fail to build influential connections. When you need a mentor, an investment, or a career opportunity, your instinct is to approach an influential person and explain your situation. You discuss your struggles, your background, how hard you've worked, and why you deserve a chance. You appeal to their sense of fairness, their kindness, or their moral obligation to help others. They may listen politely, they may even express sympathy, but they will rarely take meaningful action on your behalf. Why? Because appeals to mercy or fairness create a psychological burden without a clear benefit. Influential people are constantly approached by people requesting help. If they assisted everyone who deserved assistance, they would exhaust their resources without achieving their own objectives. Strategic thinkers throughout history have recognized a fundamental principle. It's more effective to be needed than merely liked. Don't request favors or assistance. Instead, offer transactions that are positioned as strategic alliances. Invest time researching what they actually need. Do they have a competitive threat they're trying to neutralize? Do they have an operational problem consuming their attention? Do they have a personal project that's underperforming? Position yourself as the solution to their specific pain points. When you communicate with them, focus entirely on their interests rather than your needs. I've noticed you're dealing with X challenge. I've developed an approach that could resolve it while saving you significant time and resources. Suddenly, you're not a supplicant requesting charity. You're a strategic partner offering value. Self-interest is the only language universally understood across all cultures and industries. Speak it fluently and systematically, and access will follow naturally. People protect and promote those who solve their problems and advance their objectives. We exist in a culture of constant availability. Most professionals answer messages within minutes, accept every meeting request, and remain perpetually accessible. You believe this demonstrates dedication and reliability. Actually, it signals low perceived value. Basic economic principles apply directly to human behavior and relationship dynamics. Scarcity generates value. When you're constantly available, you're common. Common resources are cheap and undervalued. Influential people respect time because it's the only resource they cannot purchase more of, regardless of wealth. When you give your time away freely and constantly, you're communicating that it has minimal value. Historical strategic advisors understood that leaders who are seen too frequently become ordinary in others' perception. You must learn to strategically withdraw your presence. Be fully engaged and present during interactions. Make people feel valued and heard when you're with them. Then disappear from availability. Don't answer communications on the first attempt. Don't be immediately available for casual meetings. Maintain a life, mission, and schedule that doesn't revolve around any single person or opportunity. This strategic unavailability accomplishes two critical objectives. First, it demonstrates you're a person of genuine value with multiple options and demands on your time. Second, it creates what psychologists call an open loop in others' minds. They begin wondering where you are, what you're working on, and who else you're connecting with. Your strategic absence occupies mental space. When you do return to availability, your presence is treated as a valuable reward rather than an expected obligation. Use calculated absence to increase respect and perceived value systematically. Every person is fundamentally oriented toward their own perspective and experience. Even individuals who appear humble are secretly invested in having their worldview validated and understood. They want to feel genuinely comprehended. They crave confirmation that their reality makes sense. Most professionals attempt to connect by discussing themselves extensively. I accomplished this. I believe that. This creates noise rather than a connection. To build genuine rapport with influential people, you must become their psychological mirror. Reflect their patterns to them in slightly enhanced form. If they communicate aggressively with rapid speech, accelerate your communication pace and match their intensity. Adopt a similar posture and energy. If they're contemplative and measured, slow your pace significantly. Become more thoughtful in your responses. Match their breathing rhythm subtly. adopt their vocabulary patterns. If they use military metaphors, incorporate military framing. If they reference sports analogies, use athletic comparisons. Yet this isn't simple mimicry or mockery. This is neurological synchronization based on how human brains process social connections. When you effectively mirror someone, their subconscious categorizes you as similar. This person is like me, therefore I can trust them. Therefore, they must be intelligent and capable. You're bypassing their analytical mind and communicating directly with their intuitive social processing. People don't fundamentally want to be challenged in initial relationship building. They want to be confirmed and validated. Become the confirmation of their brilliance and perspective. When they interact with you, let them see an enhanced version of themselves reflected back. They will become psychologically attached to your presence because you make them feel understood in ways most people cannot accomplish. In previous economic eras, land ownership represented ultimate power. In our current information economy, strategic knowledge represents power, but not generic information that anyone can access. Secret, valuable, actionable intelligence that provides a competitive advantage. Influential people are frequently isolated by their position. They're surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear rather than uncomfortable truths. They're starving for genuine insight, for understanding what's actually happening beyond their immediate visibility. If you can become the person who brings them valuable, unfiltered intelligence that protects their interests or creates opportunities, you become genuinely indispensable. This might include competitive intelligence about what rivals are planning. It could be identifying systemic flaws in their organization that others are afraid to mention. It might be recognizing market shivers before they become obvious to everyone. Don't position yourself as a gossip or rumor spreader. Position yourself as a strategic intelligence source. Curate information that protects their position or gives them a competitive edge. When you trade in valuable knowledge, you elevate your status dramatically. You're no longer an outsider requesting access. You're a trusted advisor, an intelligence asset. There's no organizational bond stronger than the connection between co-strategists who share confidential information. However, a critical warning: never reveal all your information sources. Maintain a monopoly on your intelligence supply chain. If they can access the same information without you, they no longer need your involvement. Keep sources protected. Deliver valuable intelligence. Become irreplaceable through your information access. Nothing bonds two people more rapidly than shared opposition to something or someone. Social psychologists call this in-group/out-group bias. We naturally favor people who oppose the same things we oppose. If you want to build a rapid connection with an influential person, identify what they genuinely despise or oppose. Do they hate inefficiency and bureaucratic processes? Do they oppose a specific competitor or rival philosophy? Do they despise mediocrity in their industry? Do they resist the status quo? Align yourself with that opposition strategically. Validate their frustration and position yourself as a fellow warrior against the same forces. The level of mediocrity that's become acceptable in this industry is exactly what you've been highlighting. It's refreshing to meet someone who refuses to accept it. When you validate their opposition, you validate their struggle and their sense of mission. You're communicating, I see the challenge you're fighting, and I'm here to support that battle. Be careful to avoid being purely negative or complaining. The opposition must be framed as a righteous purpose. We're among the few maintaining standards in an environment of declining quality. This creates an alliance dynamic, an us against the world framework. In that context of shared struggle against common opposition, deep loyalty develops quickly. Strategic observers of human behavior understand that people don't operate primarily in objective reality. They operate in their idealized fantasy of who they should be and want to be seen as. The aggressive executive wants to perceive themselves as a benevolent mentor. The chaotic creative wants to see themselves as a disciplined visionary. The insecure leader wants to view themselves as a transformative hero. Your strategic role is identifying their idealized self-concept and playing the supporting role in that narrative. If they want to be perceived as a wise teacher, position yourself as a genuinely eager student. Request their guidance. Allow them to share their knowledge. Let them feel wise and generous. If they want to be seen as an innovative rebel, become the supportive accomplice. If they want to be recognized as a transformative leader, become a loyal supporter of their vision. Don't force them to confront gaps between their idealized self and reality. Reality is often painful and threatening. That's precisely why many successful people insulate themselves from uncomfortable feedback. If you're the person who consistently supports their idealized self-concept, they will protect you fiercely. Because if you exit their environment, their comfortable self-image becomes harder to maintain. You become the psychological support structure holding up their self-perception. This sounds manipulative when stated plainly. But remember, we're not discussing genuine friendship here. We're exploring how to build strategic professional connections with influential people. And influence operates partially as theater. Learn your role, understand the script, and execute professionally. Influential people, managing significant responsibilities, operate under constant high stress. They carry the weight of organizational decisions, employee welfare, and substantial financial pressure. Their internal psychological state is often turbulent with anxiety and pressure. Most people who interact with them add to that stress burden. They bring problems, drama, and urgent issues requiring attention. To become genuinely valuable, you must be the opposite. You must be their calm center. You must become their emotional anchor and stress reduction system. When they're frantic, you remain measured. When they're angry, you maintain steadiness. You must learn to absorb their chaotic energy and reflect clarity and solutions. I understand the challenge completely. Here's the solution I've developed. It's already handled. Those 3 words, "it's handled," are among the most seductive phrases you can speak to someone drowning in responsibilities. You're removing weight from their psychological burden. You become a sanctuary rather than an additional stressor. They will begin seeking interactions with you, not primarily because of business value, but because of how you make them feel. You make them feel safe, in control, and supported. In an environment of constant pressure, become the peaceful space. In a world of fire and chaos, become the water that cools. If you can measurably lower their stress hormones, you can substantially increase your value and compensation. Strategic thinkers throughout history have praised adaptability as a supreme survival skill. When dealing with influential people across different contexts, you cannot maintain a rigid identity or approach. You must be adaptable to situational requirements. Some contexts demand assertiveness, others require deference. Some situations need leadership, others need supportive followers. Don't become attached to a single identity or presentation style. If you insist on being yourself in rigid ways, you'll clash with people whose style differs from yours. Strategic adaptability is defensive armor. If you have no fixed form, you cannot be effectively attacked. If you have no fixed shape, you can fit into any opportunity. Adapt to the culture and style of the person you're building a connection with. If they operate formally, dress formally and match that energy. If they're casual and relaxed, mirror that approach. If they drink whiskey, you drink whiskey. Remove unnecessary friction. Make it effortless for them to integrate you into their world. The most effective intelligence operators are those who blend perfectly into their environment. Adapt to surroundings so you can stand out strategically when it actually matters. Save your differentiation for moments of genuine importance rather than wasting it on superficial style differences. This represents the ultimate strategic principle in professional relationship building. Make yourself necessary to those with whom you want a sustained connection. If they could replace you with a simple job posting, you're in a vulnerable position. You must weave yourself into the fabric of their success so thoroughly that removing you would damage their operations. Identify a function they hate performing, but that's essential to their success. Then master that function completely. Take ownership of client relationships they cannot afford to lose. Develop expertise in systems that only you fully understand. Become the bridge between them and something they desperately want or need. If you're the bridge, they cannot burn that bridge without harming themselves. Don't teach them how to replicate what you do. Maintain some level of specialized knowledge. The more they depend on you for their peace of mind and operational success, the more influence you actually possess. Independence is largely a myth in professional networking. The actual goal is strategic mutual entanglement. You want them lying awake at 3 a.m. thinking, what would I do if this person left my organization? Once you've created that thought pattern, you've achieved genuine security. You can request the raise, negotiate the partnership, because you're no longer merely an employee or vendor. You've become an essential organ in their operation, and you don't remove your own heart. The most influential person in any situation isn't the one making noise or issuing obvious commands. It's the person who constructed the decision framework. When you present choices to influential people, don't offer unlimited options. That creates decision fatigue and paralysis. Instead, curate the options strategically. We can pursue approach A, which carries risk X, or we can pursue approach B, which generates outcome Y. Frame the choices so that the option you prefer becomes the only logical selection. This creates an illusion of control. You allow them to make the decision so they feel ownership and authority. But you've constructed the pathway they're walking on. Strategic advisors throughout history have understood a wise leader should rely on what they control, not on what others control. By controlling the framework of the conversation and the architecture of decisions, you control outcomes while they feel autonomous. Never ask completely open-ended questions like, what do you want to do? That's lazy and creates a burden. Instead say, here are the 3 paths I recommend, based on analysis. Path 2 provides the strongest risk-reward ratio. What's your decision? You've done the analytical thinking. They're providing the authorization and accepting ownership. You're the architect designing the building. They're signing the approval documents. Here, we arrive at the final and most important principle, the paradox that makes all other principles actually work. To build genuine connections with influential people, you must not need them psychologically or emotionally. If your self-worth depends on their approval, they will sense that desperation instantly. They'll categorize you as a fan or admirer rather than a peer or strategic partner. True influence recognizes other genuine influence. You must cultivate radical self-sufficiency and autonomy. You must build your own domain, even if it's initially small. You must develop your own code, your own vision, your own mission that exists independent of any single relationship. You must be genuinely willing to walk away from any deal or connection if it doesn't serve your long-term objectives. The person willing to walk away from a negotiation holds all the leverage in that negotiation. When you sit across from someone with significant resources and influence, you must know at a bone-deep level that you will be fine without them. You're not there to extract value. You're there to exchange value between equals. This energy shift changes everything about how you're perceived. Your voice becomes more grounded. Your eye contact holds longer without anxiety. You stop nervous fidgeting and self-soothing behaviors. You become psychologically solid, and that solidity is magnetic to influential people. They're surrounded by psychologically fluid people, constantly bending to accommodate their preferences and whims. When they encounter someone solid, someone who respects them but doesn't worship them, someone who brings value but doesn't desperately need validation, they become fascinated. Be the immovable rock. Be sovereign in your own mind and mission. Connect from a position of wholeness and sufficiency, never from lack or desperate need. Take a moment to let these 13 principles fully integrate. I understand what you're thinking. This sounds calculated. This sounds manipulative. This sounds like game playing. And yes, there are strategic elements to everything we've discussed, but examine the world around you honestly. Look at how organizations actually function, how governments operate, how society is structured. Do you believe these systems were built on complete transparency and naive goodwill? Or were they built on strategic thinking, leverage, and a deep understanding of human psychology? You face a choice. You can remain idealistic, clinging to the belief that the world should operate on pure fairness and merit. You can stay in the passenger seat, complaining about the driver, or you can grab the wheel and start directing your own trajectory. These principles aren't about becoming evil or abandoning your integrity. They're about understanding human nature better than most people understand themselves. They're about speaking to people's actual motivations rather than their public presentation. When you apply these frameworks, dynamics shift immediately. You stop being invisible in professional spaces. You stop searching for a savior and become the strategist. You recognize that influential people are simply individuals who learn these dynamics earlier than you did. Many of them are waiting for someone authentic, someone who understands these realities to walk through the door. That someone can be you. These 13 principles aren't chains constraining you. They're keys unlocking doors previously closed. But possessing keys is useless if you lack the discipline to turn the lock. This level of psychological mastery and strategic relationship building isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a daily practice requiring consistent implementation. The world's default programming is designed to keep you compliant, reactive, and positioned as a piece rather than a player. If you refuse to return to that passive state, if you're ready to develop your strategic thinking until it cuts through noise and confusion, then make a definitive choice right now. Subscribe to continue developing these strategic capabilities, not to support a channel, but to make a contract with yourself. Signal to yourself that you're done being a passive observer of your own professional life. You're ready to become the strategist who shapes outcomes rather than merely experiencing them. Welcome to the circle of people who understand how influence actually operates.